The first thing I remember about him was his laugh. Not his face, not his clothes, not even the words he said to me. His laugh. It came from somewhere deep inside him, warm and careless. The kind of laugh that made you turn your head even when you were pretending not to listen. His name was Thabo. Mine was Chinedu. He was South African. I was Nigerian. And neither of us knew on the night we met that those two words would one day become heavier than our names. We met in Johannesburg on a Thursday evening. It had been raining. Johannesburg rain is strange. It does not ask permission. One moment the sky is dry and golden, and the next, water is beating against rooftops, cars, windows, everything. I had taken shelter beneath the awning of a small restaurant in Yeoville. I was 27 and new enough to South Africa that I still carried my Nigerian home inside me. The food, the music, the expressions, the memories. I had come to Johannesburg believing, as many young men do when they leave home, that life was waiting somewhere else with its arms open. I was wrong about many things, but I was right about one. Life was waiting. It just wasn't waiting in the way I expected. Thabo was standing beside me under that awning. He looked at the rain and sighed. Johannesburg is trying to drown us tonight. I laughed. Maybe Johannesburg doesn't like visitors. He turned toward me. Then it has bad manners. That was the first thing he ever said to me. I remember it because years later, when everything else had become uncertain, I would still remember that moment. Two strangers, one roof, one storm, and a joke. We talked until the rain stopped. Then we talked after it stopped. We discovered that we both loved music, that we both hated arrogant people, that we both believed food tasted better when someone else cooked it. He told me stories about growing up in Soweto. I told him about my mother in Nigeria. He teased me about my accent. I teased him about his. We argued about football. We argued about music. We argued about which country had better food. He insisted South African food was superior. I told him he was confused. He laughed. And somehow, without either of us noticing, Thursday became Friday. Friday became Saturday, and Saturday became the beginning of a life.
Love did not arrive dramatically. It came quietly. It came in the way Thabo began saving the last piece of meat for me. It came when he started calling just to ask, "Have you eaten?" It came when I realized that whenever something funny happened, he was the first person I wanted to tell. It came in small apartments, in borrowed cars, in cheap restaurants, in long walks, in arguments, in apologies, in the silence after arguments. It came when we learned that loving someone was not simply wanting them when life was beautiful. It was choosing them when life was difficult. And we chose each other, again and again and again. People did not always understand us. Some stared, some whispered. Some refused to believe that what existed between us was love. Others were kinder. There were South Africans who welcomed me as though I had been born among them. There were Nigerians who embraced Thabo as though he had always been one of us. There were people who looked at us and simply saw two men who had found each other. We held on to those people. We held on to kindness, because kindness is sometimes the only light available when the world becomes dark. Eventually, we built a home. Not a perfect home, a real one. There were unpaid bills, broken appliances, arguments over money, burnt food, laundry, laughter, music, and photographs everywhere. Then came our children. Our first child changed everything. I remember holding that tiny body in my arms and being terrified. He was so small, his fingers wrapped around mine. Thabo stood beside me, crying. I had never seen him cry like that. "Look at him," he whispered. I looked. "He's ours." Those two words broke something open inside me. Ours. Not mine,
Not his, ours. We became fathers. And somehow, two men who had once been strangers beneath a restaurant awning became the center of a small universe. There were school uniforms, birthday cakes, homework, feverish nights, morning arguments about brushing teeth, Christmas mornings, Sunday lunches, little shoes by the door, drawings taped to the refrigerator. The children did not care that their mother was Nigerian and their father was South African. They cared about who made pancakes. They cared about who would carry them when they fell asleep. They cared about whose turn it was to buy ice cream. They were children. They understood something adults sometimes forget. A family is not a passport. A family is not a birthplace. A family is not blood alone.
A family is the people who stay. For years, Johannesburg became ours. We knew its streets, its sounds, its mornings, its sunsets. We knew where to buy the cheapest vegetables. We knew which taxi drivers talked too much. We knew which shopkeeper always gave the children sweets. We knew the sound of rain on our roof. We knew the rhythm of our life. And then the country began to change around us. At first, it was only something we heard about. Another attack, another shop burned, another foreigner beaten, another community frightened, another story about people blaming migrants for jobs, crime, poverty, everything that had gone wrong. We talked about it at night. "Do you think it will come here?" I asked once. Thabo looked at me. "No." He said it quickly, too quickly. Then he took my hand. "We are home." I believed him. Because I wanted to. Because sometimes love makes you believe the thing you need to believe in order to sleep. Then came the day when our children came home early. The school had closed. There had been trouble nearby. At first, we did not understand what was happening. Then the messages started arriving. Stay inside. Do not go out. Foreign-owned shops were being targeted. People were gathering. There were rumors, angry crowds, police, shouting, fear moving through the streets faster than the rain. I remember standing at the window. Thabo stood behind me. Our youngest was asleep upstairs. Our oldest was watching television. The ordinary sounds of our house continued. A cartoon playing, a tap dripping, a refrigerator humming. And outside, the world was becoming something else. "Why?" I whispered. Thabo did not answer. "Why are they angry with us?" He finally said, "They're not angry with us." I turned around. "Then why does it feel like they are?" He looked at me. Because he had no answer. That night, someone threw a stone through the window. The sound woke the children. Glass exploded across the floor. Our daughter screamed. I ran upstairs. Thabo ran toward the door. "Don't!" I shouted. He stopped. For a moment, we stood there, staring at each other. Then we heard shouting outside. Someone yelled something about foreigners, something about Nigerians, something about taking back their country. I held my daughter against my chest. She was shaking. "Papa," she whispered. "Yes? Are they coming for us?" I could not answer. Because I had spent years teaching my children that home was the place where they were safe. And suddenly, I did not know if that was still true. The next morning, everything changed. Thabo's brother called. "Don't go outside." Then my cousin called. "Chinedu, you need to leave." Then another message. Then another. Our phones would not stop. But where could we go? This was our home. Our children's school was here. Their friends were here. Our photographs were here. Our lives were here. I looked around the house. The sofa where the children watched movies. The kitchen where Thabo danced while cooking. The small table where we helped with homework. The wall covered with family photographs. Everything we had built. Everything we had earned. Everything we had loved. And suddenly, it felt as if a stranger had entered our home and was telling us we no longer belonged in it. We left 3 days later, not because we had done anything wrong, not because we had attacked anyone, not because we had stolen anyone's job, not because we had committed any crime. We left because fear had become stronger than belonging. That was the cruelest part. Nobody asked us what we had done. They only asked where we were from. And suddenly, my answer became dangerous. Nigeria. One word. A country. A history. A continent. And to some people, a reason to hate me. Thabo held my hand as we walked toward the car. Our children followed. The youngest carried a stuffed rabbit. The oldest carried a school bag. They did not understand why we were leaving. Neither did we. We went to stay with relatives, then friends, then another place, then another. The family that had once occupied a whole house became scattered across different rooms in different cities. Thabo slept somewhere else. I stayed with the children. Our oldest asked me one night, "Are we going back home?" I looked at him. I wanted to say yes. I wanted to promise him. Instead, I said, "I don't know." That was the first time I realized that adults can be terrified too. We simply learn to hide it. Thabo called every evening. Sometimes the children spoke to him. Sometimes they were too tired. Sometimes the connection was bad. Sometimes neither of us knew what to say. One evening, he said, "I miss you. I miss you too. I miss the children. They miss you." Silence. Then he whispered, "Do you remember the rain?" I smiled. "The first night?" "Yes." "You said Johannesburg had bad manners." He laughed. For a few seconds, we were young again. Two strangers beneath an awning. No children, no fear, no borders, no politics. Just rain and laughter. Then the call ended, and I cried. Quietly, so the children would not hear. People often talk about xenophobia as numbers, attacks, deaths, businesses destroyed, statistics, statements from governments, diplomatic protests. But numbers do not tell you what happens inside a house. They do not tell you about a child who wakes up asking why his family had to leave. They do not tell you about a father staring at an empty chair. They do not tell you about photographs packed into suitcases. They do not tell you what it means to lose a home without losing your love for the place. And they certainly do not tell you what it feels like to be punished for a problem you never created. We were not responsible for unemployment. We were not responsible for corruption. We were not responsible for crime. We were not responsible for the failures of politicians. We were simply two men who had fallen in love. We had worked, we had paid rent, we had raised children, we had contributed, we had lived, we had loved. And still, somehow, we became part of a war we never declared. Months passed. Our family remained divided. But love has a strange stubbornness. It survives distance. It survives fear. It survives unanswered questions. It survives borders. One Sunday morning, I received a message from Thabo. I found a house. I stared at the screen. Then another message arrived. It's small. Then, very small. Then, but there is a garden. I laughed. For the first time in months, I laughed. I called him. You found a house? Yes. Where? South Africa. I became quiet. Are you sure? He was silent for a moment. Then he said, Chinedu, they may have frightened us away once. His voice trembled. But I don't want them to decide where our family belongs. I closed my eyes. Are you asking me to come back? No. He paused. I'm asking you to come home. I went back, not because the country had become perfect. It hadn't. Not because the fear had disappeared. It hadn't. I went back because home was not the streets. It was not the government. It was not the angry voices. It was not the people who wanted to make us strangers. Home was a man who had stood beside me for years. Home was children running through a garden. Home was a kitchen filled with laughter. Home was the sound of Thabo calling my name. Home was us. The house was small. He had been right. Very small. The kitchen barely had enough space for 2 people. The garden was little more than a patch of grass. But when the children arrived, they ran outside screaming. They chased each other, they fell, they laughed, they got dirty, and Thabo stood beside me. I looked at him, he looked at me. Neither of us said anything. We didn't need to. We had survived. Not because the world had been kind, but because we had refused to stop loving each other. Years later, people would still ask me, why did you stay? Sometimes I would tell them about Thabo. Sometimes I would tell them about our children. Sometimes I would tell them about the first rain. But the truth was simpler. We stayed because leaving a place does not always mean escaping hatred. Sometimes hatred follows you. Sometimes fear follows you. Sometimes the only way to defeat it is to build something stronger. So we built. Again, and again, and again. We built a family. We built friendships. We built a home. We built a life that hatred could not define. Our children grew up knowing 2 countries in their blood, 2 cultures in their stories, 2 histories in their names. But we taught them something greater than all of that. We taught them that Africa was not supposed to be a continent where Africans feared one another. We taught them that a Nigerian should not have to apologize for being Nigerian in South Africa. We taught them that a South African should never have to hate a Nigerian to prove that he loves South Africa. We taught them that poverty has causes, crime has causes, unemployment has causes, political failure has causes. And none of those causes is another human being simply because he was born on the other side of a border. Sometimes, late at night, when the children are asleep, Thabo and I sit outside. The Johannesburg sky stretches above us. He reaches for my hand. I squeeze his fingers. And I think about that first rainy evening. The young woman I was. The man he was. 2 strangers. 1 roof, 1 storm. I sometimes wonder what would have happened if I had decided to walk away that night. If I had taken another road, entered another restaurant, caught another taxi,
met another person. Perhaps our entire life would never have existed. But it did. And no crowd, no slogan, no border, no hatred, no politician, no angry voice can erase the years we gave one another. Because they can scatter a family, they can break windows, they can burn shops, they can force people into hiding, they can make children afraid, they can make a man question whether the place he loves still loves him back. But there is one thing hatred cannot do. It cannot decide whom we love, and it cannot tell us where our memories belong. Johannesburg was where we met. South Africa was where we built our life. Nigeria was where I came from, and our children were the bridge between all of it. So when people ask me where home is now, I no longer give them a country. I give them a name. Thabo. And when he asks me the same question, I already know what he will say. He will smile, take my hand, and whisper, "Wherever we are together."
If this story touched your heart, please subscribe, like, and share it with someone who needs to hear it. Join us for more passionate, inspiring, and unforgettable stories. Thank you for being part of our journey.